And now the story of a Mormon family who lost their faith and the one son who had no choice but to keep them all together. It's remarkable development.
This is Infants on Thrones. Philosophies of men mingled with humor. We are the core.
Nice music. Welcome back to Infants on Thrones. This is Glenn Osland, and I called up my good buddy Matt last night.
I stumbled across this song on Pandora last night.
Yeah?
Old Shin song. It's freaking amazing.
Yeah?
Power off.
Power off. And I also got to talk to his wife, Kristen, for a minute.
Hi, Glenn.
Hello.
We can't wait till you're an Arizonian again.
I know. We're so excited.
Be prepared because it's fucking hot here.
Yep. I know it.
But there's swimming pools.
And movie stars.
And movie stars.
The Beverly Hillbillies. Yeah. That's how my brain works.
Pop culture references are not Kristen's strong suit.
Now, I wanted to talk to Matt for two reasons. So I'm gonna do another kind of like update. One, how things are going. I want to give you all a brief update on what's going on with our upcoming Sunstone plans. And here's a little something to make listening to this worthwhile, kind of thing that I'll just post tomorrow. And two, I wanted to provide you listeners some better content to follow this update than my raw driving ramblings from a week ago.
I've got an opinion.
Okay.
As you almost never miss. Did not love the talking to yourself in the car bit.
You didn't like it?
Not my favorite. And then my brother, who is your biggest fanboy, said I really liked the first part, and then when he started in the car, I kind of got lost and then turned it off. I was like, I kind of had the same experience, and I love Glenn, and I hope that doesn't hurt you.
I'm not going to do this anymore.
You know what I wanted to tell you, Glenn, is I appreciate the many hours of entertainment you've given me, but you've really just jumped the shark with that episode. I'm done listening to you anymore.
Yeah,
off one 20-minute episode that I just personally didn't engage in. So I'm done with Infants on Thrones.
All right. So you heard it here first, people. You know, it used to be Randy that was threatening to leave, and every episode was going to be his last. Now it's Matt. So this is Matt Long's last episode of Infants on Thrones. Or maybe not. All right, so here's your quick update. First, we're going to have a new website soon. Our good buddy Craig Keeling has volunteered his professional skills and is working on it as an act of love. And it's going to be amazing. Amazing! So keep an eye out for it. And if you have some kind of freelance web design needs, Craig's your guy. Contact him. You'll see his email at the bottom of our new page. He does great work. And seriously, this is going to be awesome. Second, information on the Infants on Thrones t-shirts that I talked about last week will be on our website soon. You'll be able to see what they look like. You'll be able to pre-purchase them, and then we'll have them ready for you to pick up in person at Sunstone. Now, for those of you who do want to get a t-shirt, but you won't be at Sunstone, so you need them shipped to you, hold tight. We'll eventually be able to do that. The shirts are awesome. They're great. I own 3 of them. And Craig also designed those shirts, by the way. So thank you, Craig, again. And then number 3, last but not least, because this is the announcement that really made me want to do this episode, because I know that everybody's going to be really excited about this. Heather is no longer a maybe for Sunstone. She's a big, fat yes. Well, not big or fat, but tall. She's tall. She's taller than I am, and I'm 6'2". So, anyway, Heather is a big, tall Amazonian yes for Sunstone. So, and she'll sign your T-shirts for you at Sunstone if you're there. So that's good news, right? So on to my conversation with Matt. which is a response to a comment that a listener named Jeremy put on our website a few days ago in response to our recent John DeLynn is a Big Fat Atheist episode. Well, John's not fat either, but he's tall. He's taller than me too, but Matt's not. So I'm going to go talk with Matt. I thought there were some interesting conversation points buried in this comment that we could tease out.
Yeah, so let's just get into it and talk about it.
All right, so let's read it. So this is a response from someone named Jeremy, who wrote on our website in response to the John DeLynn, the Reluctant Atheist episode, and he says, just out of curiosity, do any of you interact with believers, and he put that in quotes, you respect intellectually? This may not be fair, but a few of you seem to still have a very Mormon way of seeing the world. The smug dismissiveness of anyone who sees things differently than you do. The need to label and categorize what's good, better, best. Atheism, yay! The persecution complex. Even the way some of you admitted on this episode that you silently judge those who believe differently as idiots. Is it possible?
Can we stop, or do you want to? Can we smack this down, or how do you want to do it?
Oh yeah. You want to take it piece by piece?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then some of that stuff won't get lost, and
right.
We can hit it. So, do you want to answer the first question? Are there any believers that you respect intellectually, Glenn?
It's a tough question because the way that he says, "Do you interact with belief?" Like, I don't have much interaction with believers, and then like the believers in quotes that he would say. But I mean, if I think about it, yes, there are believers that I respect intellectually, but it's not like across the board intellectual respect. It's like on some things, absolutely. On other things, I don't. I don't expect their conclusions, and it's that whole suspension of, So like when I talk about having to sacrifice your intellectual rigor for something, it's like in these other ways you're brilliant, but when it comes to this, you like put it all aside and just say, well, faith will give us the answers, instead of really exploring these things and using your intellectual tools that I respect to come up with a conclusion that's better than just faith. Because
and I work with believers, ecclesiastical leaders who in my job, and certainly professionally, and I respect these guys completely and immensely. I respect their intellect. They're smart guys and women, guys and dolls, I guess.
Guys and dolls, yes.
Guys and dolls,
yeah.
Yes, right. But there are, almost anyone I interact with, people who I respect intellectually, there's probably an area where I think that they engage in lazy thinking, bad thinking. I disagree with them on certain issues, but I can still respect them intellectually. Yeah. I certainly don't think they're the people, the believers that I interact with are idiots. My mother's certainly not an idiot. My father's certainly not an idiot. But I can say that they're maybe don't apply the same intellectual honesty when it comes to this aspect as they do to other parts of their life.
Yeah, and I shy away from using words like honesty, because then it's like the inverse of that is that we're calling them dishonest, and I don't want to do that. That's why I use rigor. The intellectual rigor.
And we're saying that, I think conceptually we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, it's just that my way's better.
Right. Yeah. I'm an idiot when it comes to how I describe
exactly
intellectual honesty versus rigor.
Jeez.
No, it's fair.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's a kind of weird approach to think that we're talking about atheism, we're talking about magical thinking and those types of things, which also I guess is a pejorative, but there's no question I respect people intellectually. There are people who are much smarter than I am who are believers in a lot of areas, but am I willing to just suspend what conclusions I've drawn and to say, oh, you know what, they've got a pretty good point when it comes to that? No, just like I'm not when it comes to any any issue. Another friend who's not a Mormon, not a believer, or he's Christian, and we agree on almost everything from movies to our approach to many ways our approach to life, and he's got a fairly prominent position, and he's one of my closest friends, one of my people I interact with every day, and he's a young earther. Yeah. And so no, I don't necessarily respect that, his analysis or his logic or the conclusions that he's drawn based on the evidence and the information when it comes to that. But I respect him probably as much, if not more, than anyone else that's in my life. Yeah. So I don't understand the false dichotomy.
And we don't know who Jeremy is. We don't, I don't know how old he is. I don't know what his experience has been in life, or what's informing his response to us. But I can say, probably 10, 15 years ago for me, when I was coming across things that I've talked about the Corinthians 15 telestial, where
I've never heard that.
You've never heard me talk about that?
Yes,
well, let me explain it to you. No, I'll explain it.
Oh, good. Yeah. What is that?
Yeah. But I was trying to understand, how does this work? And so I would appeal to people that I respected their intellect, under the assumption of they must have come across these kinds of problems before and been able to find a way to make it work. And none of them could explain these things to me in any way. It was just, we'll just have to take it on faith. But then, when I work it out, I'm like, it seems like this is what it actually means. It's like they weren't even willing to go there or entertain that. And so for me, all I'm saying is that because that's my experience, that's why I come to this place where it may seem like I'm being dismissive or smug or, whatever it is, but I just feel like I've done I've put the intellectual work into it, and I've gone to these people that I respect, and they haven't been able to help me in these areas. In other areas, right, they're way better than I am, but in these, it didn't help.
Yeah, and if I come off smug on this issue or really any other, then I regret that. Certainly, I hope if I accept that I'm dismissive, but I hope it's thoughtful dismissiveness.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, and I'm the one who mentioned that internally I really am judging people, even though on the outside I'm trying to make it look like I'm not. Like I feel like that's a flaw of mine, and maybe I don't come across, and it's not as obvious that I'm thinking that this is a character flaw of mine, and it's a problem. It's not something that I'm proud of. But by admitting it and talking about it on a podcast, I'm trying to own it and say, yeah, I've got this flaw, and not, boy, everybody's so stupid that they can't see things my way, or whatever. Right. But it's just I'm just being honest about how I feel about things, and I don't like that, but it's inside of me, and I don't know how to be different than that, except just the fake it till you make it kind of thing. That maybe it is a reaction to what I saw in Mormonism. But what do you think about this kind of mirror inverse thing that he's trying to create? That, boy, you're just the opposite extreme of Mormonism with your smug certainty, and you're just as smug and certain on the other side of it.
Yeah, I'm so rarely confident about many of my views or opinions. I mean, I'll articulate them. I think that, but I think I'm pretty quick in almost every aspect of my life to say, yeah, I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the information, and I'm not saying I know. That has crept in more and more the further away from the church I've gotten. So there are very few things of which I feel, I have enough information and enough confidence to draw conclusions and say, categorically this is not true, or this is not real. But when those things do happen, I'm going to be pretty strong in doing that, which is, and certain things like homeopathy and some of the things we talk about on the podcast. Yeah, I am comfortable taking very strong positions against those things, just like I would Holocaust deniers, 9/11 truthers, these things that I believe are demonstrably false.
Yeah.
So I reject the idea that I have the same approach now as I did in Mormonism, because I'm not basing it on just what other people have told, what other people have said, and just in faith and that approach. So it's just a fundamentally different approach until I'm willing to draw conclusions. So from that, it's completely different than the way I viewed the world and approached the world when I was involved in Mormonism. I mean, what about you?
Well, I can't really be sure, can I? Because this I think it's kind of a trope that he's presenting here that I hear often. But if you come off and saying like bombastically certain that I'm not that way, well, then you really are kind of the mirror image of the bombastically certain Mormon that's sure you are the other way. So the only way to come off is uncertainty. And, like that's not manufactured or insincere on my part, but I really do. Like I read a comment like this and I have to ask myself, okay, he's seeing something. I've got to look at myself and see what's in there, like what truth there is to it, because I don't think I'm that way, but maybe I am, or maybe there's things that I'm doing that are coming across that way that could easily be interpreted. And if he's seeing it, then other people are seeing it, and I don't like being perceived that way. So what can I do? So I think on the Mormon side, there was, for me as a believing Mormon, if you're saying that there was this smug dismissiveness of anyone who sees things differently than you do. Like there was that at that time, and if I'm now that same thing just on the other side of a line, that's bad, and I don't want to be that, because I don't feel. First of all, I don't feel smug. There's certain areas, like you talk about young Earth or something, that I would probably be smug, like how stupid are they, and that bleeds out, even though I'd rather not, because I know it's not kind, and I'd rather be kind. But yeah, I think that's kind of stupid. And so is that dismissive? I guess it's dismissive. But is it anyone who sees things differently than I do? I don't think so. I think that's too sweeping and broad of a statement. I think there are cases where it's that way, but not always. So yeah. With some of the things that have been brought up recently, with certainly the election has drawn up debates, and it has created us versus them, and people are taking strong positions for Trump and everything he says, and anti-Hillary or for Bernie, and that whole thing has created this. Is there still anyone that's really for Trump, like really strongly, stridently for Trump? I mean, no one that I interact with, but yeah, I think there are people out there, aren't there? If there were, would you respect their intellectual honesty? Not when it comes to that issue. And again, I do know people who I respect intellectually, professionally, that are strongly for Trump. Now, some of them may say it's because they just dislike Hillary so much, or because they see it as a pragmatic a vote, or they think that the Supreme Court is all that matters, and they're going to plug their nose while they vote for him. And so, no, I don't think those people are stupid or idiots. I may think they're misinformed on certain issues. I certainly disagree with them, and I don't necessarily respect their approach to politics. But to say that if I disagree with somebody in these narrow categories, that somehow I find them unworthy and lacking intellect or something isn't it's not fair. But the one I was thinking about recently was. But I've got to say, I think I probably am guilty of that. Like if we're talking about people who like really stridently support Trump, I think there's this ideal that we should not judge other people or allow other people's differences, right? But I think that's impossible. I think we all judge, and so if I find out that if a neighbor of mine has a Trump banner in their yard, I'm going to bring some prejudice and some bias to what I think of that person, and it will change the way that I think about them. It absolutely will. And if I sit down and talk with them, like I'd want to have a conversation and find out why. What are you seeing that I'm not? So I think in that approach, there's not as much dismissiveness because I'd want to know, but the immediate response is, "Gosh, dang, I liked that person. This is too bad." Like, really? You're supporting Trump? How can you ignore all the awful things that Trump says and believes and does? And
yeah, and I certainly hold that opinion myself against Trump. But if somebody chooses they're going to vote him for whatever reason, again on that issue, I question their approach but intellect's not the right word, I guess.
So what if Tom is a Trump supporter and he just feels too bullied to come out and say anything about it? Tom.
Yeah. Well, what if? Yeah.
Tom.
That would shock.
Tom, what are you doing supporting Trump, man? Tom.
He's not really, though, is he?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know.
He's never said he doesn't, so he may.
He's always kind of quiet when it comes to politics, and I think he leans more to the right than probably any of the others of us do. But I don't know.
As we all maybe
he
should.
He does have like that Sean Hannity poster in his room or something like that.
Well, I like. There's a line from the Hamilton musical and one of the songs. It says you should smile more, you should talk less and smile more. Don't let people know what your plans are. And there's probably some wisdom there when it comes to politics. But when I started talking about politics, I was thinking about the recent gun control or gun restriction debate that keeps popping up, and just it seems like to everyone it's just simple one way or the other. It's like this is everything here is good, or if you don't support it, you're evil. And I'm personally see it a lot more complicated.
Yeah,
I really do. I think when it comes to rights and responsibilities and how do you enforce it and what do you enforce and exactly what are we talking about, that conversation isn't allowed to happen because too many people are saying the other side's stupid and liberals do this and conservatives do this, and that's that's the type of thinking I just on those issues I don't subscribe to. I think my common line is, life's pretty complicated and I don't have all the answers, and I've certainly seen that as I've gone from a fairly black and white mentality in being a prosecutor and involved in criminal justice. I had a lot more black-white thinking and things seemed a little more clear. And since I've been on the other side, I thought, wow, things are a little more complicated, and it's really not as stark as I once thought it was. So,
all right, let's go on with Jeremy's comment. So, do you want to read, or do you want me to pick it up?
Oh, well, you just read, so I'll read the next one. But good. I did want to hit good, better, best. But aren't you always doing that? And I hope people are doing that, looking at things and saying, okay, when it comes to this issue, I think this is good. This might be better. For me, this might be best. I think we do that all the time in life, trying to evaluate whatever data points or information, and that's good. That's good thinking. And I always say this in life, and it's been a mantra in work and now recently and kind of personally. It's the perfect can't be the enemy of the good. So to say that if there's something's good, just because there's another ideal out there doesn't mean now the good becomes bad. So instead, I hope we're all evaluating what's good, better, best for us, and acknowledging that it might not be other people who are not similarly situated might not be same. So I thought it was weird to critique somebody of looking at things as good, better, best. That sounds like a virtue more than anything.
Well, but he was trying to give examples of the Mormon way of seeing the world. So this is the need to label and categorize what's good, better, best. And then his example of that is atheism, yay. So to me, what you're talking about evaluating is what I meant earlier when I said that everybody judges. So when I talk about judgment, I'm thinking of like neutral judgment. Like there can be judgment for positive or judgment for negative. I think most of the time when the word judgment is used, we think about condemnation and kind of conflate, being judgmental with condemning other people. That's not really what I meant. What I meant was more like what you said, evaluate.
Yeah. No,
and so that you're right, that he says the need to label and categorize what's good, better, best as if that's just a Mormon way of thinking. I think that's an incorrect example, that he's stretching there. And I don't feel like there is a need to label. I just feel like there's a need to be clear on the words that we're using to make sure that we're all talking about the same things. And that's where the value of a label or just language in general comes to play, because that we can get closer to what we're really talking about if we have that. But so I don't think there's anything intrinsically wrong or intrinsically Mormon about labels.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. So, gosh, I lost it again, dude.
Yeah. He said,
is it possible your experience within Mormonism was so toxic spiritually that that binary thinking is so deeply ingrained in you because of your Mormon experience that you can't see a path other than atheism? I'm sure you all have friends who are Jewish or maybe Catholic, Buddhist, or just spiritual. Maybe try not to just understand why they believe, maybe try to not just understand why they believe, but respect it.
Yeah, let's pause there.
Yeah. So I consider myself pretty spiritual.
What?
I also,
Shut
I'm a pretty spiritual guy.
What does that mean? Now we're getting into labels again.
Right. I think more and more I'm interested in people as other entities and what's going on in their life, and connected to trying to understand and it sounds so freaking hokey, but connecting to nature and appreciating what that is, because I think those are spiritual ideas. Are they metaphysical? No, but I think I gain insights and am inspired by my relationships with other people and with, like I said, being out in nature. And it's a pretty hokey form of spirituality, maybe to some people, but it's something I have.
Yeah, I mean,
what's wrong with that?
Spirituality is a really problematic word, because if you don't believe that there's anything like real, like there isn't a spirit that lives inside of us that is separate from the body, it's that metaphysical thing.
Sure.
How can you call yourself spiritual?
It's how you define it. Sure.
I'm sure. Yeah, you define it by it. It's something completely different. And John Hamer has done that when we've talked to him about what spirituality is for him, and it's the pursuit of intellectual thought and all these other things. Yeah. But it's just a way of reclaiming this term of spirituality. But I think what Jeremy's saying is asking us here is if our experience with Mormonism was so toxic that it indelibly changed the way that we see the world, and it conditioned our brain so that we can only see things in a binary way, and we've just now flipped onto the other side of that binary. And I think it's a valuable question, and I think the answer for me, the first part, was the experience within Mormonism so toxic that it had this indelible imprint on you. I think yes, absolutely, it was and is, and there's still that imprint on me. I'm not going to say that it's a binary imprint, or that I currently have binary imprint. So I think that's kind of begging the question in what he's saying there. It's one of those how often do you beat your wife questions.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like I've got this binary, and I don't even see atheism as a path. Like to see anything other than atheism as a valid path. I mean, like if you're talking about way of living, there's definitely other valid ways of living than being an atheist. But that episode where we were talking about was if you don't believe that God is around or important, that question's not important to you. What do you call that? Anyway.
Well, and there's in the question he poses here, he uses binary thinking, because I can have 5 Jewish friends and respect the way 2 of them approach religion and the world, and not respect and not agree with the way 3 of them. So to lump every Jewish person or every Catholic person or every Baptist person as if they all approach religion the same way, that's too binary. So yeah, I respect people, but and their beliefs to the extent that it instructs them and influences them to do good and do positive things. But am I going to respect someone? And it's become Godwin's law now. It's the Westboro Baptist Church. No, I'm not, because their religion causes them to do abhorrent things. And if anybody's religion and their beliefs causes them to do that, then I'm not going to have a respect for their religion, or even if I'm able to understand it. So I can look at a group of Mormons and say, this class of Mormons, I respect their approach to religion because it influences the way that they treat people positively. But here's a class of Mormons that I have less respect for or don't respect for the same reasons, and the way they approach instruction. It influences the way they treat other people and try to influence legislation and these types of things. So, and then and it's not just 2 classes. It's, again, not good or bad. There's a spectrum within each of those religions where I can say this approach to religion is I can see that as healthy and I respect that, even though it's not for me. And so that's so I reject the premise that it's. I reject that it's as binary as he has proposed it.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is fair is the way I interact with people in real life and not on the podcast is very different. I'm not going to come in just stridently say, now let me tell you what my opinion is and let me have a strong take on every position. But I do that on the podcast because, A, I'm trying to be honest, and I think that makes for better a better episode. I mean, we could all be wishy-washy and just sit back and say, you know what, guys, we really don't have the answers, and we could talk about this, but no one really knows, and everybody's view is as valuable as the other one. And don't you all agree with that? Yeah, I totally agree with that. Well, that sounds like a good episode. That's what we have to say about insert the blank.
Well, and I think another reason you are like this on the podcast, and I am like this on the podcast, but not in other areas of our lives, is because of the immediate audience that we're speaking to, which is the 4 or 5 of us, however many, in this case 2, just you and I, that are having the conversation. We are each other's audience, and like I can't say that I'm not thinking that what I'm saying is going to go out to dozens and dozens of people, but I'm not thinking about their response really when I'm having a conversation with you or with anybody else. I'm just I'm so interested in the concepts that we're talking about and the tangents that we go on that it's just that kind of enclosed conversation. And maybe I think that's maybe a difference between what we do and then having John on, where John is very careful in the words that he chooses and stuff, and we kind of rib him about it a little bit because I think he's thinking about his audience that's listening to him probably more than we are when we're having conversations with each other.
But this was a conversation we had early on in the podcast, and it centered around swearing, and we initially did censor, or either we bleeped words. And very, very early on, we came to a point where we said, look, we're just going to be honest. We're going to put it out there. We recognize this will necessarily alienate a certain people and maybe a certain segment. And we just made a decision that we're okay with that. Our goal is not to be as broad as possible. Maybe I think there was a man that talked about, be hot or cold, don't be lukewarm or spit you out of your mouth or something like that. And that's definitely been my view of things. Is
there wasn't really
a dude that said that?
No. that saying was accredited to somebody, but whether it was real or not, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And I don't know. I don't know that that's not the reason that I subscribe to it. I would prefer to be honest and not be a character or not take on a persona. Although we all do to a degree, as our podcast persona or whatever. Certainly, it's enhanced or slightly maybe a caricature of ourselves to a degree, for the same reasons we already talked about, is we don't have the same conversations with one another as we do in mixed company, and I don't think anyone would. But that's not to say that this isn't being honest. In many ways, this is being particularly honest, and other times I'm being more diplomatic or trying to be more, I guess, effective in my interpersonal relationships when I'm looking at somebody and their thoughts and feelings do matter to me.
Yeah. So he asked this question at the end, which I love this idea. With our friends of different religions, maybe try to not just understand why they believe, but respect it. Like, that sounds awesome. I would love that. I don't really know what that means. I don't really know how. I don't know what it means to respect. If we go back to the young Earth person,
right?
Like, how do I? Like, I can understand why he believes that. But how can I respect that? Like, I don't know what that, like, what does respect mean? Does that mean that I give deference to him? Does that mean that I'm just nice and kind and don't challenge it? Like, I don't know what respect means. What does that mean?
Right. Well, and
accept it.
It's patronizing, really. If you really don't believe that, but you give lip service to it, isn't that patronizing?
Is that what respect is? I don't know what respect is in this case.
Unless you don't have a position on things, let me give a fairly silly example. I love talking music and movies and TV shows, and every once in a while you'll find somebody who is a good friend who just has the horrible taste, in my opinion, in movies, music, TV shows, and I love having those conversations. Why do you like, Grey's Anatomy? Oh, I tease my wife all the time, my daughter, because I watch Grey's Anatomy. It's a horrible show, yeah. And at some point, you're not going to respect that person's taste in movie, music, food, whatever, and you will no longer listen to it, and you will disregard when they give you a recommendation. I can take that position on that issue just like I could any. So I don't know, Glenn. I don't know what it is to respect somebody on certain positions that you just absolutely fundamentally disagree with.
If you take his entire comment and like understand what he's saying and where he's coming from, I think what he's saying here is don't just try to understand, but don't be dismissive. Don't be smug. Don't, like all these other things that, so like he's using the word respect, and with respect he means don't dismiss them. But like, what can you do? Like, how, and we had this conversation on a few episodes ago. I don't remember which one it was, about validating somebody. Oh, this was when we did the anger conversation with the Tyler Glenn stuff, and we were talking about like validating somebody's beliefs. Like, I think that I get tied up in how to be respectful. I end up just like shutting up. But I don't want to be offensive to somebody, but they can see, so like in between my divorce and my marriage to Krista, I dated a woman that I respected a lot until, like your friend, I found out that she believed in, young, like very biblical centric, creationist, and
6,000 years to the day.
6,000 years, and the inerrancy of the Bible and these things, and like my whole view of her changed, and I just thought, so like as I'm looking around and thinking, I know I want to get married again. Is this a potential candidate? No. No, I can't. And I can't go like, oh, you know what? I respect you for that. It would be a huge problem. And I could pretend. I mean, there were other, it didn't like come down to this issue. There was other, it just wasn't right. But like my reaction to that was absolutely one of dismissiveness. It changed the entire way that I thought about her. And I don't know how to respect that. Like, I can understand why. I can say, that's okay for you, but I don't really think it's okay for you. But I can say that just as like because I don't want to be a total asshole about it. But I also can't. I don't know what it means to respect. I don't know what it means.
Well, it's
you know who we should talk to about this is Kim McKay. And I did have a conversation about this with her once. I remember we were in a car. It was at Sunstone last year, and I was giving her a ride somewhere. And I asked her about this because her husband is still a believer, and she's out. And I'm like, how do you do this? How do you respect? I don't remember what she said.
That's because you weren't respecting her because you weren't listening. It didn't matter.
But it probably was that the things that she was saying. I'm like, yeah, but that's not really respect, or something. It's not as being so smug and dismissive.
Well, Jeremy's conflated something here, and the idea that people deserve respect, ideas don't, and so you should challenge and critique and criticize ideas without doing the same thing to individuals. And too often, because people feel like they are inextricably connected to their ideas, that an attack on their ideas is somehow an attack on the being or on the person, and that's just not the case.
So, Matt,
and it can't be.
I can respect you, even though what you just said I don't respect. But
I think that's true.
But explain to me how you respect Donald Trump. Like, in what ways do you respect Donald Trump? Can you really separate his beliefs that you don't respect, but the man you do respect? I mean, come on.
How about this? I respect him as a proverbial child of God.
Baloney. No, you don't. No,
but at some point, Glenn, there are people I do not respect. There are, but not because they have certain ideas that I disagree. At some point,
I think it's the sum of the ideas that you disagree with. Like if it's just a few, they get a pass. But once the scale starts tipping in the favor, it's like, okay, I don't respect the person either.
Oh, it's true, because at some point, I say this all the time, is they're a horrible human being. And there are certain people that I've encountered and that I have to experience from time to time that I believe are just horrible human beings. So I don't respect them as people. But that's pretty rare.
I think the saying "people deserve respect, ideas don't" is another trope, and it's a nice bumper sticker kind of saying.
Oh.
But I don't think you can really genuinely separate the ideas from the person. I just don't, and I think what it really means is that there's a limit, and that it's not this blanket sweeping thing where you either respect them or you don't. There can be many things about them that you respect and a few things that you don't, and then the aggregate is respect.
Well, I absolutely. That
doesn't make as good of a bumper sticker.
Right, but I think that's the message trying to be communicated with respect the person, not the or ideas. Whatever, people deserve respect, but ideas don't. At some point, it is just that, it's an aggregate. Yeah. And if it's a net positive, you respect them. If it's a net negative, you're going to. At some point, there is a tipping point where, no matter how good of qualities they may have, and it also comes to weight. Right, not just number, not just how many things do you either respect or agree, but weight. Yeah. So at some point, if somebody could be, and this happens all the time in the criminal justice system, which is somebody who commits a horrendous crime against a child, for example, they always get up and say, "Oh, but here's all the good things that he's done, and here's and he's never committed any crimes." And a lot of people come in and they're recidivists, and they just commit so many crimes and have all these problems, and this has been his one thing. And I'd always get up and say, "Yeah, well, he picked a pretty big one." And this one can define you when, if you chose to murder somebody in cold blood or, hurt a kid or do these things. So there is weight that goes to these factors as well, because guess what? Life's pretty complicated and individuals are pretty complicated, and all these different factors instruct that as to how you feel and how you view a certain person. And it's not just about religion. It's not just about politics. It's not just about it is your articulation of it being an aggregate is exactly, I think, what that when I say that, the sentiment about people versus ideas is what I'm articulating.
It's what you mean. It's not what you're saying.
No,
like how spiritual you are.
Yeah, all right. It's in my world that means that's fair. That's and that's why terms matter. And we always in all these discussions we have to define terms. What do you mean by X? And then we can have a meaningful conversation, because otherwise it's just about our own perception, and both people can be right on things until you agree what we're talking about.
Yeah. All right, the next segment. Back to Jeremy. The only reason I suggest this is because the strident, dismissive, and judgmental tone that sometimes come across is kind of a turnoff to people leaving the church, because it's all too familiar. Insisting that DeLynn label himself as an atheist, or the bullying of Heather in her first few episodes because she was still going to church, calling anyone who still goes a de facto bigot.
Has anyone used that term, by the way? Has anyone taken the position that anyone who still goes is a de facto bigot? I'm asking if his statement is accurate. Does that accurately reflect anything anybody said?
Well, no, but his perception is his perception, so it's valid, right?
Yeah, what he says is
respect
he's diverse.
him, Matt.
He's entitled to the respect of his views, right?
Yeah, respect him. But those things don't seem all that different than the way certain Mormons respond to family members who leave the faith. So, yeah, I mean, he's using such heavy-handed language, strident, insist, bullying. Maybe
Randy would say straw man about everything. Yeah. In this comment, I guess, and that's true.
And maybe Randy is his biggest target. Maybe Randy's the one that he has the biggest problem with. I don't know.
Randy's the one that bullied Heather when she was not in the church. He was the one kind of went after her the strongest, as I recall. I
can assure you that Heather did not feel bullied about that at all, and actually appreciated the questions and the chance it gave her to articulate some really good ideas. So
and honestly, she advanced a more compelling case for attending than a lot of people have. Yeah, so I think she represented or maybe not believers isn't the right word, but people who attend better than most people do.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I think he was upset. Like Jeremy somehow cast himself in the role of John DeLynn here. I don't know, because what he goes on to say at the end here, it sounds like he's just kind of tired of Mormonism too, and he wants to be done with it. So I don't, like Jeremy's not a believer that's in the church that's saying, don't be so mean to us. I don't think that's who Jeremy is. But I don't know. I mean, like maybe on the Nomish side or whatever, or, like you guys are coming across too harsh, which I can empathize with, because I have felt that way. Like I felt that way often in Mormon expression, and even earlier on Infants on Thrones, I probably felt that way more. I felt that way about Krista the Psychic, and you guys being so like stridently opposed to her, and I'm like, oh, listen to what she has to say. It's interesting. It's fun. Like, no, don't do that anymore. Stop it.
True. That is true.
But
you respected Krista the Psychic.
I still do. I still like her. I mean, so as far as like the Krista the Psychic thing, and I don't know if this really adds to this conversation or not, but I feel like if you take the position that she's a fraud, that what she has learned to do is to reflect a person's desires, or reflect them upon themselves, and that's kind of what she's doing as a psychic. That's kind of a valuable role if you're wanting to understand yourself better, and you have this conversation and she's saying things back to you and you're like, weighing, does that make sense or not? I don't know. I still talk to her. To her, but not as like a psychic, but just as a friend, and I think she's very insightful and helps me.
I found it more entertaining than a lot of the other guys did for a shorter period of time. I wouldn't listen to her over and over again, but no. I mean, I can remember listening to a number of those podcasts and being entertained by the exchange and what she was doing. So I found her to be a fraud as well, but she was entertaining.
She says things, like I don't go to her and say, what is my dog thinking? Although the thought does pop up in my mind when my dog is sick, and I'm like, I wonder what Krista would say is going on with him. But like when I've had issues with my kids and I've talked with her about it, she's given me really good advice on like how to approach them and how to deal with things. And maybe that's just I'm suggesting things to her and she's throwing it back to me, and that's why I think it's so great because I'm such a narcissist.
I know the idea of de facto bigot, though. I maybe what he means, and this I will stand by, is unintentional bigot, like we talked about with Mike Tannehill, the unintentional
racist.
You are. It is that. And Scott and I were visiting yesterday, and Scott's wife had just come home from a book club where they were talking about people who have disabilities and abnormalities, and I guess it was a book about conjoined twins and some of the things that they go through, and the person who wrote the book talked about that medical. When there's medical anomalies like that, the urge is to fix it, is to make them quote normal, or change what they are, and for many of these people, they don't feel like they're not normal. This is who they are, and this happens in the deaf community. It happens in some of the disabled community, and in dwarfism, and all these different I don't know subgroups, I guess. And I was visiting with Scott and talked about how the idea of the resurrection could be potentially really damaging and emotionally these people to constantly being reinforced of and reminded that
they're not normal.
You're not normal, and not only not normal, but this needs to be fixed at some point.
You're not acceptable.
That's right. Yeah. And your entire life is, I can't wait till I die for the resurrection so I can have my sight, have my hearing. Right. For Scott, who's colorblind, he may actually see purple. These, or you could say
Scott's colorblind.
Oh yeah, you didn't know that?
That totally changes the way that I see Scott now. I don't know if I can respect him anymore. Jeez.
And it really, I never thought of it that way before. And Launica just gave in talking about that, gave me a real insight last night and into that, and how sad I became for anybody that fits that category that is constantly, pining for the day where they will be normal or good enough and I just really hurt my heart last night as I was thinking about the message. So that is an unintentional, potentially destructive message that's being reinforced over and over and over again. And I'm not going to when I look at that, or in telling somebody, no, you're okay. You are good enough how you are, and you are an individual, and there is no ideal that you need to strive for because you are a quality person in how you were born, especially when we're talking about either disabilities or anomalies or differences, whatever, right? And so, yeah, I think that's a better approach than the other one. So is that binary? Is that being dismissive? I embrace that if it is, and I stand by it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that any of us have talked about people as being de facto bigots, but there is the perpetuation of bigotry in the doctrine, and there's perpetuation of misogyny in the doctrine, and imbalance of power, imbalance of opportunity. There's still the perpetuation of racism. There's still a lot of flaws in the doctrine, and so like wishing that people would wake up and see that and recognize it and either fix it or do it. And I know there are people in the church that stay in the church and will always stay in the church that are very uncomfortable with those things. And so I'm not saying that those are stupid people or those are bigots, but it's when you're perpetuating that to younger generations, that your kids, that they don't have the mental capacity to reason out for themselves. They're just accepting this stuff, and then it imprints on them. And that's part of the toxicity that he talked about before. Is Mormonism so toxic that it creates this imprint on your brain? I think it is, but I don't think that a Mormon that goes to church is a de facto bigot because the leadership of the church promotes bigotry.
I agree. Absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. So,
all right. There was a time. Oh no.
No, he says I have
no idea what the goals of your podcast are, or what your motivations are.
Well, how does he not know that?
Right. I wanted the same thing. We've said it over and over again. It's to have fun and talk about interesting topics with interesting people.
Yeah.
And as long as it's fun, we'll do it. Isn't that that's been our mantra from the beginning?
Uh-huh. As far as they know.
Yeah, right. I got lost.
But regardless, you do have a big impact on people transitioning out of Mormonism. There was a time when this was my favorite podcast, and while I wouldn't go so far as to say you saved my life or saved my marriage, as others have said on this thread, I will say there was a time I couldn't wait till you put out the next episode. Yeah, thanks, man. If you're doing it for just shits and giggles, seems like a lot of work, but we all have time-consuming hobbies. Maybe you don't want negative feedback. If that's the case, ignore my comment. But wait. But I just want to pause here and say it is the case. It is just for shits and giggles, and you're right. It is a lot of work, but it is. It's we all have time. He says it here like, that seems like a lot of work. So he's being quite dismissive of our stated motivations for doing this podcast.
That's true.
It's a little smug. But it is a time-consuming hobby, and it's something that we do for our own shits and giggles. But again, he's got like this cause and effect reasoning that's it's just incorrect. He says if this is the case, just ignore my comment. But I don't want to ignore his comment because I think there's interesting things in here. There's good things to pick out, and I said before, in the description that we put for Infants on Thrones at the very beginning, I think it's something like, what is it? That we're like reflecting on ourselves or something. What is it that we said about ourselves?
In which one?
No, it's on our website. An entertaining podcast about self-awareness and discovery. The title Infants on Thrones is an homage to the Mormon founder Joseph Smith, who said in his lesser-known King Follett discourse that eternity is full of thrones upon which dwell thousands of children, reigning on thrones of glory with not one cubit added to their structure. It's a funny image, but it also suggests that we as amateur podcasters do not really have all the answers we may think we do. We can't take ourselves too seriously. We are also infants on thrones. I mean, it says it right there, what we're about, and it's this self-awareness and discovery. That's the part that I like best about it. So I get a comment like this, and it makes me go, okay, I want to try and look at myself through this guy's lens and see what's valid, what's not. Where do I have room for improvement? And I think clearly we've seen that there just is none, right?
Right. No. We've got it all figured out.
We do. We've got it figured out. So we just wanted to make everybody know that we know that. And
in smacking down the comment, we are dismissive of his comment and say nuh-uh, and to a degree that's true. But I hope what it's done is caused me to think, okay, I don't want to come off as smug. I'm okay with dismissive in the right circumstance or in the right issue, but I certainly don't want to come off as smug. And if that's happening, then that does cause me to reevaluate maybe my approach and qualifiers. Again, I hope I do that. I think I do. If I don't, I should be better about it, because the last thing that I ever want to communicate is that I've somehow got it figured out. 41 years old with a kid that's kids that are 19, 16, and 12. Struggling with interpersonal relationships and work and everything that goes with it. I've hardly got things figured out.
You'd be doing better if you had stayed in the church. I'm quite sure.
No doubt.
Yeah, you would. No. But I think I don't remember what I was going to say now. That's all. Crap.
Man.
It was really good, man. Why did you do that to me?
Sorry. Where was it about? Come on, remember Glenn now.
I don't remember.
You de facto idiot.
I don't think there's any de facto about my idiocy.
Okay. Well, you think I'll continue reading.
Yep.
If you're doing this as and by the way, we love feedback, negative or positive. I love negative.
I remember now. It was about dismissiveness, and like our Smackdowns are reading every single word of like an article or an essay or a blog or whatever it is. I think that's hardly dismissive. That's analytical, and we debate and discuss and go on tangents over all these things. That, I think, is a form of respect. That we would take the time and the mental energy to really try to parse these things, and it's not just a sham. It's not really like we're holding it up as a piñata just so we can beat it. Sometimes it is. Sometimes that's what it becomes. But I think we do it so that, or for me, I do it because we get into these really interesting discussions that I think go back to what our statement is about self-awareness and discovery.
I remember the one podcast we did on, it was right around Halloween a couple years ago about, was it demon experiences? And we were talking about, and I was talking about how I love them. I mean, they're stupid. I mean, this is all stupid. And Jake kind of checked me and said, well, wait a minute. Are we just going to do this and just say, hey, yeah, here's a story that's stupid. It's not worthy. Mm-hmm. And it did cause me to think, oh, yeah, no, that's fair. That's not interesting. It's not fun. And there's no reason just to say, well, here's their position. Well, it's stupid. And so that's dismissive. And if that happens, you generally it's you or Jake does a lot of the people that are on the podcast do check that and say, well, wait a minute, let's break this down and let's take it from their perspective and from the TBM whispering to other things. I don't see how that's dismissive unless we just say, all right, there was a statement by the church and it's pretty stupid, not even worth, as we know, they're really dumb and it's just it's a bad point. So let's move on. Well, that's dismissiveness. I don't think what we do is. It may at the end we may say it may seem like it because we disagree with it and we find it unworthy, but that's after weighing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think dismissive is when you say, I'm done listening to your podcast. I'm not going to listen to it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just dismissing you guys without even hearing what you're going to say from now on. I think that's where the dismissiveness comes in, and it really hurts my feelings. Can you tell, like, with my tone of voice that I'm being
sarcastic?
I was going to say a dick.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't distinguish, that voice from when you're normally a dick. So,
okay. There's like multiple.
There's levels, right?
There's levels.
Yeah. But if you're doing this as a service and you want to reach as many struggling Mormons or post-Mormons or whatever Dylan wants to call it as possible, I would suggest trying to be a bit more open-minded and tolerant of those who have different beliefs than yours. Okay. I don't know that that's our goal to reach as many struggling Mormons or cafeteria Mormons or I think we acknowledge we are not for them, and John does, and John says he said it in our podcast, right? That's his goal, to reach as many people and be accessible and as palatable to as many people as possible. I don't know that that's our goal, and I mean, my goal is to be interesting to me and to talk about things that I find interesting. So often topics will come on and somebody will post something and say, hey, let's talk about this. And if it's not something I'm interested, I generally won't jump in. So that's my goal.
That's dismissive.
Is it?
Yeah.
Maybe. And here's the other thing I'll say about trying to reach as many people as possible. That is, I said it's not my goal, but many times my goal is to give voice to people who don't have a voice. So if I say very inflammatory things about church policies or about certain leaders, and whatever that position is, I hope that I am saying that because other people are thinking it and aren't in a position either in their family or their job or other places where they can say it. And I think it provides a measure of, I don't know what the word is, but it gives them a charge and like, yes, that's what so it validates people who are thinking the same thing and a lot of times that is my motivation, is to say things that I know other people would like to say and believe as well, because they don't have a voice like a lot of people do, or certainly like we do.
I respect that. It's not. I like when I hear that has happened and that's a result of something that we've done or said, but I don't. That's not a goal of mine. I don't strive for that. Maybe I should. I don't know.
Well, okay. You persuade me. It's not at the forefront of my mind. I mean, to say it's like a motivation is a mischaracterization. Like, hey, what is somebody else out there thinking? Let me say this. It better be organic. It better be genuine. So,
no, but you also, you have that project with Benji to give voice to the LGBT experience. Pardon me, I'm eating some bread from Panera and I keep hiccuping now. Okay, so unless your goal is to basically do what the church does, speak to an increasingly small audience who sees the world just as you do and reinforce their beliefs and biases. He uses a lot of 3 patterns, I've noticed throughout. Yeah. While I'm probably done listening for the same reasons some of the hosts seem to be asking themselves how long they want to be involved, it doesn't seem healthy to continue to be defined by Mormonism or to stay angry. I know this podcast can help a lot of Mormons leaving the church. He's like ending by bearing his testimony. I know this podcast can help a lot of Mormons leaving the church. As you guys pointed out on this episode, there are so few people in this space, and you guys can be brilliant and hilarious. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think he gives us too much credit in his comment.
I don't think he really. I don't think he really knows us that well. I think he's a Mormon Stories guy that felt we were a little bit too hard on John DeLynn, and he's heard some of our infants episodes. Like he heard the one that Heather was on because this is somebody who's still going to church. She's on Infants on Thrones. Let's listen. But like he doesn't know the difference between you and me and Randy. You know. So I think we can just dismiss him. The fact
I hear him saying you don't resonate with me, and John DeLynn does, and I totally get that.
Yeah,
we've always said we do not have the same. We have some overlap with John's audience, but
we don't want people like
audience.
Jeremy. We do not want people like Jeremy.
That's not true. I want Jeremy. I want to convince him to my. I want to bring him over to my small world and biases. Is that what he said?
No, it's hopeless. He's never going to be smart enough to see the light.
No, he's done with Mormonism, he said, right? Isn't that what he's saying?
Joke. Yeah. He said he thinks he's done listening. I bet he listens to this one because we'll put his name in the title. I don't know.
I just think he gives us too much not credit, but just
that's not credit, Matt. That move at the end is like, boy, you guys could be awesome if you only weren't.
Right.
If you only weren't bad. If you could just tweak things, you guys have some potential there.
Yeah, but it comes back to taking ourselves too seriously. He's asking us to take ourselves too seriously.
He's asking us to do this for a group of people that we're not really doing it for, and we've never said that we're doing it for. And even though John at the end of that podcast said, I think what you guys do can reach this group of people, that's a secondary concern to it. It's just not what drives me. I don't think it's what drives any of us, but that it happens and it's helpful. That's cool. That we have 8,000, 9,000 people who regularly listen. That's cool. Mm-hmm. Like cycling in and out. It's nice, but it's not why we do it.
Well, I can tell you, I have changed my opinions on things. I've progressed, I think, in a lot of views because of the conversations I've had on this podcast.
Yeah.
and so I guess maybe it's selfish. Is I like Bob's take. I like Heather's take because it's very different than mine, and it causes me to think, I hadn't thought of things that way, and that makes sense to me, or that's something I can get behind that I otherwise wouldn't have thought. And the same goes with all of y'all.
Yeah.
So
and we make each other laugh. That's I love that. So.
Oh, absolutely, and certainly we were friends before, but we're such good friends over the years.
But we had never been naked together.
That's true. Well, some of us
before.
have.
Oh well, you and Randy. But
yeah, well, because I don't think that's. There was just one night. No, but yeah, and so now the only time I get to interact with the people who aren't in Arizona is on the podcast. So why would I want to stop doing that? Why I love when Tom, calls me a dick and calls Randy a dick. That just cracks me up. I really like Tom, and otherwise wouldn't get to hang out with him.
Tom's awesome.
Yeah,
Tom is awesome. We all
despite his Trump support.
Group navel gazing hug.
Yeah. And some of the guests we've had on who I am now friends with online and talk with them from time to time and which has caused me to meet other people online and interact with really smart and thoughtful and interesting people. So the podcast has enhanced my life, so why not keep doing it? So it is very selfish. I apologize, Jeremy. It's not for the other people. It's for me.
Yeah.
But it was a fine take. Your take, Jeremy, was as valuable and worthy and deserving of respect as almost anyone else's.
I maybe Jeremy is the type of person who doesn't always get when we're being sarcastic. I think there's definitely people out there that don't always understand when we're being facetious.
Yeah.
So like we might say something like, Jeremy, you're an asshole. We don't really mean that.
No.
Even if we do inside. We don't really mean it on the outside.
And we can say...
And there was me being facetious again. And like if I start explaining it, it just makes it no fun.
Right. And in my last line, I was trying to be very respectful. And I hope it came off as respectful. But that doesn't necessarily...
That doesn't mean that you meant it
that
respectfully.
I meant it respectfully, right.
Yeah. Got it.
But I look, any listener that listens, I'm happy they listen, and I hope they got some fun out of listening to the John Dehlin Reluctant Atheists for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was. I hope you did. And
especially to this one, because we were only going to talk for 20 minutes, and
what the hell?
We've gotten like an hour and 15.
Yeah. It was fun. We don't even need to put this out. I had fun talking to my friend Glenn.
Yeah, we're going to put it out.
Yeah. No,
that's the only reason we did it, was to put it out.
I'm talking to Glenn. I get it. It's going out.
Yeah, right.
After all, these implements and text designed by intellects so vexed to find evidently there's just so much that hides.
Hi, this is Hillary.
Matthew, Ryan,
Carol,
Keith,
Ashley, and I like to play bingo online while listening to Infants on Thrones.
You can comment on this episode on the website, infantsonthrones.com.
And if you really like what you hear, give the Quorum a 5-star rating and write a short review on iTunes.
I did. Anyone for the closing prayer?
Step into the night, since I don't have the time nor mind to figure out the nursery rhymes that helped us out.
Okay, so we've got to start a new, this is Matt's last episode.
Yeah, I did kind of set that up with John when we did the John thing, right?
There's a Reddit thread now that people are saying, what's going on with Infants on Thrones? Are they almost done? And then people are like, good riddance. I stopped listening to them 3 years ago. Bunch of navel gazers. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I don't blame him. There's a lot of podcasts I listen to for a couple episodes and then just stop, and I get it, man. That's kind of the nature of the beast, you know?
Yeah. Well, you better go work out now.
Yeah, I think I will.
All right.
I've been off for a couple days since Thursday or Friday. So.
I know. I've been off for a couple of months since I think September or October.
Yeah. Well, it's beach season, man. We got to get in bathing suit shape, right?
Yeah, not me. This is beached whale season.
Oh, come on.
It is.
Yeah, there was I just saw a picture of you. I thought you looked.
No,
you were getting thinner.
No, it was just an old picture. I do that every once in a while.
Thank you for listening to Infants on Thrones.